Hello, 2322. I think I'm in a better mood now. I had my morning coffee and I went to exercise. I think I told you this before, but it looks like most of the classes in the fall are going to be online. So I'm trying to shoot about 35 videos in 14 days for all my classes, and it's pretty frantic. But anyway, it's the afternoon. I like classes better in the afternoon. I feel better in the afternoon. If you're good at the end of this, I might show you the most valuable possession in my house. If you want a hint, Terry Funk would have worn a replica of this in 1976. Terry Funk's from Amarillo Double Cross Ranch, but I know the Texans know that. I want to go over the questions from the Canterbury Tales General Prologue. I would say that the questions on the Miller's Tale and the Wife of Bath's Tale are pretty specific and maybe somewhat feminist. These are a bit more general, a bit meatier. Standard 5-paragraph essay, intro, 3 in the middle, conclusion. This might be more general. It might work better for a longer, more general essay. And if you didn't understand that, I think you will when I get to the questions. The first question basically has to do with the social caste, the social ladder in the general prologue. I might have mentioned this before in an earlier lecture, but it's 1400. There's the Bible, and then there's the Canterbury Tales. I think Chaucer does a wonderful job talking about all the social castes. Not just the rich people, not just the clergy, but the peasants. Not just the men, but the women too. My theory why these tales are so popular 600 years later is he's talking about all social groups. So I think that's a good question. Nice intro. First paragraph's about the nobility, what he's doing. Second paragraph about the clergy. Third paragraph about the peasants. Conclusion. Pretty broad, pretty general. If you like that kind of essay, I think that's a winner. You can do that. The second question says, pick a character that Chaucer, who is the narrator, criticizes. You could pick the Wife of Bath. You could pick the Miller. Wife of Bath because of her general demeanor. But maybe she's nice at the end and smart and capable. The Miller's a drunk and he cheats his customers. Chaucer or the narrator doesn't particularly like the Miller. You could also write about the pardoner or the summoner. And you could, if you want, you can write about what's in the prologue. But if you want to go read their tales and write about them, you could. Chaucer is the most critical of the clergy. They're greedy, they're lecherous, they're hypocritical. If you want an example, if you remember from your 10th grade history, there was something called indulgences. So if you were bad, if you stole something, maybe you go pay the pardoner $300 and he pardons you for what you stole. If you kill someone, maybe you pay him $3,000 and he pardons you, but he's not God, he's just a man, and he's kind of taking bribes and he's greedy, and they're hypocritical. So if you wanted to do question number 2, someone Chaucer doesn't seem to like, I would go Miller, pardoner, summoner. The third question asks about the Wife of Bath and the Miller. Basically what Chaucer thinks of them. I might have done that a little too early, jumped the gun. Wife of Bath has been married 5 times. She has a big belly. She has a gap in her tooth, and she talks a little dirty. But ultimately, the more you read of her story, she's smart and strong and capable, tells a mean story. I think she gets a thumbs up from Chaucer. And then the Miller looks a bit like me, is red, likes to drink beer, kind of gruff, big beard, and he cheats his customers. And he's supposed to go after another pilgrim, but he interrupts in the tavern and jumps in front of someone. So Chaucer, to me, doesn't seem like he likes the miller. You could potentially say the miller tells a funny story, the miller's smart, the knight has gone before and told a grand story about knighthood and chivalry, and the miller story is naughty and sarcastic and sort of lets the air out of the tire of the knight story. So you could say he's smart, he can tell a good story too. Question 4 is a bit like question 1. It deals with relativism in the sense that that's what is relative to everyone. On one level, all these pilgrims, rich, middle, poor, are all going on a religious pilgrimage. The rich people are bonded with the poor people because of their religion for worshiping God. But it's kind of cool that all these different castes are in the same restaurant, the same tavern. They're sitting at the same table. They're all telling stories. They're all drinking. They're all eating. There's some companionship there, some friendship, fellowship. So ultimately, I think it's a good thing that all these people are sitting together interacting. And maybe you can make a connection to 2020 Texas. Jerry Jones probably isn't going to sit at the same table in a restaurant as some guy who works in the oil field. I don't know, but it was pretty rare in 1400 all these people got together. And maybe you could argue people get together like that at church. But it's good to hear all their voices. It's good they're interacting. It's good they're eating and drinking and laughing and connecting to each other. The next question has to do with the Canterbury Tales being written in English. On a basic level with a basic thesis, I think that's a good question, because normally literature in 1400 was written in Latin or French, and only the rich people, only the clergy could read those languages. When Chaucer writes this in English, Middle English, which I know is hard for a 21st century reader, it opens his tales up to millions more people. Anyone that speaks English or reads English could read his tales. Maybe some of the poor people couldn't in 1400, but some of the middle class people could. I would caution you that if you go in great detail about the language, like you're giving examples, if you think Middle English is difficult, Middle French is more difficult for English speakers, Middle Latin is more difficult still. So again, argue English, common language, more people can read, but I would imagine giving examples in Middle French might be kind of difficult for you, kind of difficult for me. Number 6 talks about Chaucer not particularly liking the clergy, thinking that they're greedy and lecherous and hypocritical. So number 6 asks you to write a paper about why and how Chaucer doesn't like the clergy. If you feel comfortable talking about what goes on in the prologue, go ahead. But again, if you'd like to read the Pardoner's Tale, if you'd like to read the Summoner's Tale, you could and write your paper about them. That might give you more substance to what you write. But even if you just stick to the prologue, you can tell what Chaucer thinks of the clergy. And again, indulgences, go kill someone, pay $3,000, the man absolves you of your sins, versus God or versus you doing penance or whatever. And then the last question is a bit like the first. It asks about the different social groups. So again, if you're doing a standard 5-paragraph essay, first paragraph is an introduction. You think it's cool that everyone is given a voice. Second paragraph is how he handles the nobility, damsels in distress and chivalry and valor. Then third paragraph, how he handles the clergy, and they're kind of crooked and they're greedy and they're hypocritical. They're not serving God, they're serving their own pocketbooks. And then the fourth paragraph about the peasant class, maybe you say they work hard, they're honorable. Maybe you talk about the miller's tale and say they're kind of dirty and base and not as smart. They're more like on the ground. And then you do a conclusion. So again, some of these questions, maybe 1 and 4 and 7 connect to some degree, but you can write a good general essay breaking down nobility, clergy, peasants. Okay, and I promise to show you the most valuable possession in my house. You might think it's my hairbrush, but it's not. I have the NWA World Heavyweight title, old school, not WWE, wrestling belt, subject of my dissertation. And Terry Funk, the Funk brothers from Amarillo, they were both the NWA world champion. You can have everything else in my house, but not my NWA belt. Okay, bye.